everyone, this is Sarah and welcome to my crochet channel. Today's video I'm going to be showing you how to crochet this open and lacy mandala skinny scarf. Now you can make this with just one mandala cake, and I'll talk to you more about that when we talk about what you need for the project. Now, this free crochet pattern is on my blog, and you can find that blog link down in the notes underneath this video. So what you're going to need to make you a mandala or mandala, or however you say it, I don't care how you say it, I love this yarn. And you can make this skinny scarf with just one of these mandala yarns. Mandala yarn is made by Lionbrand, and these regular ones have 5.3 ounces, 590 yards, and they're a number 3 weight yarn, which is light. I'm going to be using the metallic today, and this is the metallic. The regular is 100% acrylic yarn, but of course this one with the sparkle in it has that little thread of metallic going through it, gives it a little extra sparkle. These only have 3.5 ounces, so you're going to probably need to get 2, because you're going to need about 4 to 5 ounces to make the scarf, unless you want to make it a little bit shorter. This is also a 3, and the truth is you can use any number 3 weight yarn to make this scarf. It doesn't have to be mandala yarn. Now I love the mandala because it moves smoothly from one color to the next, and they're blends that work great together. But you can use, like I said, any number 3 lightweight yarn for this project. We're going to be stitching today with our 5.00 millimeter crochet hook. That's an H8 5.00 millimeter crochet hook. You're going to need a needle just to weave in your ends, and then you may need a pair of scissors if you don't use your whole skein or cake to cut it. The first thing we need to do is make that slip knot, and then we're going to chain 20 chains. All right, now I've chained my 20 chains. We're going to begin by placing a row of double crochets for our foundation row. Yarn over. We're going to begin by placing our first double crochet in the 4th chain from the hook. The first 3 chains will count as our first double crochet. 1, 2, 3, 4. Yarn over, go in the chain, pull up a loop, yarn over, go through the first 2 loops, yarn over, and go through the second 2 loops. So now we have 2 double crochets because our chain 3 counted as our first one, and we stitched another one. And now we're just going to stitch 1 double crochet in each of the chains across. As we're placing 1 double crochet in each of the stitches across, you're going to have 18 double crochets because we began in the 4th chain from the hook, and those first 3 chains counted as our first double crochet. So you need to have 18 double crochets on this first row. If you don't have the right number, your scarf's not going to work out. Alrighty, we're going to go ahead and chain 3. Make sure that we only have 18 double crochets. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, and 18. So row 1, you should have 18 double crochets. So we have our 18 double crochets, we chained 3, and we're going to turn. Our chain 3 here counts as our first double crochet, and we're going to stitch 1 double crochet in the next 4 stitches. And because our chain 3, I almost said chain 5, our chain 3 counts as our first double crochet, and then we stitched 4 more, we have 5 double crochets. We're going to skip the next 2 stitches, and then in the next stitch we're going to stitch 2 double crochets, 1 and 2. We're going to chain, there we go, 2, and then we're going to place 2 double crochets in that same stitch. This is our shell stitch. 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets. We're going to skip the next 2 double crochets again and repeat our shell stitch. So we'll stitch 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets in that same stitch. So the center of our scarf is going to have 2 shell stitches. We'll skip the next 2 stitches, and then we'll stitch 1 double crochet in the last 5. And remember, we started with that chain 3, and that chain 3 counted as our first double crochet, so you'll need to put a stitch as your last stitch in that chain 3. And so what we've done is we have 5 double crochets because our chain 3 counts as our first one here. We skip 2 stitches, 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets, then we skip 2 stitches again. 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets, then we skip 2 again, and then we stitched 1 stitch in each of the last 5. And that's the way the row 2 should look. So now we're going to chain 3 and turn our work. Our chain 3 again counts as our first double crochet, and it will here and throughout our whole project. We're going to stitch a double crochet in those next 4. Now we're going to move to that chain 2 space in the middle of our shell stitch, and we'll stitch a shell stitch in the chain 2 space. So we'll stitch 2 double crochets, chain 2, and 2 double crochets right in that chain 2 stitch in the center of our shell stitch. And there we go. And then we'll do the same thing to the second shell stitch. We're stitching a shell stitch in our shell stitches. Kind of hard to say fast. Shell stitch, shell stitch. Alrighty. So we've got 2 shell stitches stitched in our shell stitches, which are 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets, 2 double crochets, chain 2, 2 double crochets, and then we'll move right to those last 5 double crochets and stitch 1 double crochet in each of these 5 stitches. And again, remember that chain 3 was that stitch, and so we put our last stitch in that top of the chain 3, which gives us our 5 double crochets. Chain 3 and turn. And I think you can see the pattern of how the skinny scarf is going to work. All right, let's do row 4. We've got our chain 3. We're going to turn our work. Chain 3 again counts as our first double crochet. Here and throughout the remainder of our project, we'll stitch those 4 more double crochets. We'll stitch a shell stitch in the chain 2 space of our shell stitch. And again, the shell stitch is 2 double crochets, chain 2 and 2 double crochets. And then again, shell stitch in our shell stitch. Now that brings us to those last 5 double crochets, and we just stitch 1 double crochet in each of those 5 double crochets. And again, remember, our last one is the chain 3 from the previous row, so that we have those 5 double crochets, chain 3, and turn. Now this is the way the remainder of our skinny scarf is worked. We'll repeat row 4 up through row 67, or longer or shorter, depending on how long you want your skinny scarf to be. Each row measures approximately an inch, and so that will tell you how many rows or how many inches that you need to stitch. Now the scarf measures across this way about 6 inches, and then we measure up this way 1 row per inch, and that will give us a 67-inch scarf, and then we'll add the remainder of a row of trim to give us our 68th row. So just to make sure you understand, we're going to be repeating this row that we just completed up through row 67. Let's do another one together to make sure you understand. Our chain 3 counts as our first double crochet, and then we're going to double crochet in the next 4 stitches. We're going to stitch our shell stitch in the chain 2 space of the shell stitch from the previous row, 2 double crochets, chain 2 and 2 double crochets. And then we'll repeat that shell stitch in our shell stitch. There we go. I think sometimes my hook's getting caught on that metallic thread, but it's worth it. I love the metallic sparkle. All right, so there's my 2 shell stitches, and then I'll stitch 1 double crochet in those last 5 double crochets. And again, remember that chain 3 is our last double crochet that we need to stitch our last double crochet in. Chain 3 and turn and repeat. And another neat thing about this scarf is you don't have a front and the back. It's the same on both sides because we're turning our work constantly for each row, and so that gives you another really nice look to this scarf. All right, so repeat this row up through row 67, and then I'll show you how to add the trim. I have completed my skinny scarf up through row 67. And now it's time just to add that trim on the end. And all we're going to do is place 1 double crochet in each of the double crochets only, not any of the chain 2 spaces. So here's our chain 3 that counts as our first double crochet. So we'll go right in that next double crochet and stitch those double crochets like we usually do, those first 5. We'll stitch 1 double crochet in just the crochet stitches of the shell, not the chain 2 space. And then we'll do that on the next shell, only stitching double crochets in the double crochets, just skipping over the chain 2 space. Then we'll stitch 1 double crochet in each of those last 5 double crochets. There's another fuzz ball. I have found a few fuzz balls in this yarn, just an FYI. Alright, here's our last double crochet in our last stitch. And that just gives us a finished edge so that it looks like the other end of our scarf. I'm going to go ahead and cut my yarn. I've got a little bit left here. This is about what I have left off my 2 skeins of the metallic. Alright. Just to FYI on that also. Tie that off, use our needle and weave that in. There we go, got caught again on that metallic thread. Alright, so I like to go in, go one way, I like to turn and go back, but I don't like to end when I'm doing something on an edge with my yarn out this direction. So I always want to try to get it to go back in, just because if that gets a little fuzzy through washes, it can look a little, messy or not tidy. And I like my things to be tidy. Alright, so now I've completed my skinny scarf. Now this is a really great take-along project, because you're just repeating that row over and over and over again until the scarf is as long as you want it. You don't have to make yours as long as mine, or you can make it longer. It just depends on what you want the length of your scarf to be. And that's how easy it is to make my classy and easy Mandala skinny scarf. It's the perfect addition to your wardrobe. You can wear it to breakfast, to lunch, or to dinner, and it's the perfect scarf for when the weather's cooled off, but it isn't quite cold enough for a heavy scarf.